I have finally seen Spider-Man No Way Home, the conclusion to the first trilogy of films of the MCU Spider-Man franchise. I don't really know how else to put it. There was a ton of hype around this movie regarding characters returning and what this was meaning for the multiverse and what this was meaning for the MCU as a whole, as well as other universes. So, and I'm gonna preface this. This is a spoiler review. Movie's been out for 2 weeks by this point, I think. So, if you haven't seen the movie, you have no excuse to not have seen it by this point. So, no, I'm not gonna care about spoilers. And I will say something first off. This had the same problem as Ghostbusters Afterlife, to where the trailer was terrible. Like, Homecoming, I think, is okay. I think it's fine. I think it's a good Marvel movie. I think it's a bad Spider-Man film. So you get okay right in the middle of that. Not sure what the hell that was. But then you have Far From Home. I don't like that one. That is the one MCU film that I find completely unwatchable. Maybe Thor 2 kind of sneaks its way up there too, but I digress. Spider-Man Far From Home is borderline unwatchable. It's terrible. So I wasn't hyped for this film as much as everybody else was. Everyone's, even before all these reports and rumors and confirmations started coming in, I wasn't hyped for this. But the first trailer got me kind of excited for it. I'm not a fan of the Raimi films, but it was cool to see Doc Ock, Green Goblin were coming back, and Sandman was in this as well. And then I saw that Lizard and Electro were coming back, and I like those Amazing Spider-Man films, so I was excited to see them back. What was there was another villain too, wasn't there? Wait, that doesn't track. Maybe there's only 5. I thought there were 6. I thought it was the Sinister Six, essentially. Goblin, Electro, Sandman, Electro, and Lizard. Nope, there are only 5. Huh. Okay. But whatever. So, and then, of course, they said Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield were coming back, and I don't let myself... I keep hearing noises. I can't get a moment of peace. Ever. What the hell is that? Who cares? So, I don't like to believe rumors. I don't, even when all this, confirmed, behind the scenes footage was showing up, showing that, oh, they're really back, I'm like, I'm just gonna wait for the film. And then the second trailer dropped, and it decreased my hype. Because it had the same problem as Ghostbusters Afterlife, to where it made the movie look lame. It looked like there was absolutely no plot to the movie whatsoever. The action didn't look very enticing, and it just made it look lame. But thankfully, it's not what we got here. This is actually a very good movie. And this isn't like Homecoming or Far From Home, where my liking of it deteriorated over time. I originally really liked Homecoming and Far From Home. But then it started to deteriorate the more I thought about it and the more I watched it. I don't think it'll be the same thing here. I originally thought that bringing back all these villains was the laziest possible thing you could do. I thought it was just pure fan service because they were out of ideas. Turned out that wasn't the case, and I was surprised with how good this actually was. So of course, let's talk about all the returning characters first. Might as well. So all the main players from the last 2 films are here. Tom Holland, Spider-Man, Zendaya's MJ. They do at least give her the last name Watson, though, so ditching the Mary Jane Watson aspect and making it Michelle Jones Watson. At least they acknowledge that. And they do acknowledge it with Tobey Maguire talking about Mary Jane. So, and Doc Ock does the same thing. And then Ned's still here, and I do like the kind of foreshadowing of Hobgoblin, where Maguire Peter talks about how his best friend turned evil and tried to kill him. And Ned, then that kind of freaks Ned out, and even Garfield Spider-Man is like, dude, seriously, stop. So I kind of like that foreshadowing of Hobgoblins. I have a feeling they might do that at some point, but they didn't in this one, so And Marissa Tomei is back as Aunt May, and I honestly thought when I saw the trailer, people were saying, okay, they're going to kill off somebody. I figured it was either going to be Aunt May or Happy Hogan. Because I knew they wouldn't have the balls to kill off MJ or Ned. And they actually went through with it. I know that some people didn't like that they killed off Aunt May. I thought it was good, because it's about damn time this trilogy upped the stakes. Because the first two films, I don't think anybody died. None of the main players died, there were virtually no stakes. So, this really upped the stakes, and I really like that. The kid who plays Flash is back, like Tony Revolori or something. They did at least give him the blonde hair here, so progress? It was kind of lame the way, like, they showed him briefly reacting to Spider-Man, but it was so brief that you'd be forgiven for not even noticing it. It's like the smallest reaction just until Peter swings by him, or like into the subway. He's on screen for like 3 seconds finding out, and it should have been a while seeing that, because I was actually really looking forward to seeing his reaction to it. And I do like that he kind of helps Peter out here, not in the fight or anything, none of that. But he kind of becomes the Flash from The Amazing Spider-Man, where they're kind of trying to redeem him here. But that all got chucked out the window by the end, for reasons I'll get into later, even though he doesn't show up at the ends, but whatever. But now, and Happy Hogan's back. He's still funny, I like Happy. But now let's talk about the new characters, or the ones from the other universes. First off, Charlie Cox's Daredevil shows up. People kind of figured he was going to be in this. He's on screen for 30 seconds. But it was one of the funniest bits in the movie, where someone throws a brick through Peter's window, and he just reaches out and catches it before Peter does. And even though they know he's blind, he's like, how'd you do that? I was like, I'm a really good lawyer. That was funny. I'm looking forward to seeing Charlie Cox back. I didn't get on the Save Daredevil train, because honestly, I have better things to do than to try to get people to make something that they are just not going to, but it's coming back, and I'm pretty excited for that. All the villains are here. Well, most of the villains are here. Doc Ock is pretty good. I like that they kind of bring his redemption back into it. Dafoe is thankfully not as over the top as he was in Spider-Man, because the first movie, he made that movie kind of insufferable to sit through, because when it comes to his overacting, because it was too over the top. I couldn't stand it. Here, he does still have the big demeanor. He's got the big creepy smile, he's got the big creepy voice, but it was more intimidating because it wasn't as over the top. It wasn't as hokey. And I liked both of his fight scenes with Peter were incredibly brutal, and I really liked it. Like, they promised this would be the darkest Spider-Man film. Yes and no, I guess. But like, they were saying there would be a lot of more brutal fight scenes. There's 2 of those. There's 2 kind of brutal hand-to-hand scenes, and both of them with the Goblin. But I really liked those scenes. Those were really well done. The only problem is John Watts couldn't figure out how to shoot shit in those scenes. Like, I couldn't see what was happening half the time. He can shoot, like, the swinging around and, like, the little acrobatic moves just fine. But when it comes to the little close-ups, like, the hand-to-hand stuff, I couldn't see shit half the time. So that kind of deteriorated that a bit. Electro is here, and he is actually very interesting in this. Though this does create one super big plot hole. And this comes to term with Venom as well, who shows up in an end credit scene. I'm tempted to call bullshit because that was such a big thing. The mid-credit scene of Venom Let There Be Carnage was, oh, he's in Tom Holland's universe now, he's going to be in No Way Home. And they just shoved him in a mid-credit scene. And he was literally just there to get a drop of the symbiote setting up Peter to get the black suit in the next movie. Speaking of suits, he gets a new one at the end of this, other than the black and the red and gold one, and I think the way he gets the gold one and the black and gold one is like the one with the gold spider logo on it. I felt they were more natural than him just, oh, I need to create a new suit for this, because he got the nanotech back from Doc Ock, and it just kind of created the gold on his suit on the suit he was already wearing, and the other one was just his suit inside out. It was clever. I'll give him that. But the big plot hole is, it is established that the people who came through the portal knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Electro did not. He did not know Peter's identity. He learns it at the end of this movie. And not only that, the Rhino showed up in like a little haze thing, like more villains that were going to come through, and I saw the Rhino in there. To my knowledge, he doesn't know Peter's Spider-Man. Maybe he found it out off screen at some point, I don't know. But to my knowledge, he doesn't. And the same thing is with Venom. Just, again, to my knowledge, he doesn't know if Spider-Man exists. I'm seeing reports that Andrew Spider-Man will go up against Venom in possible Venom 3, or maybe another Amazing Spider-Man, who knows. But he doesn't seem to know who Spider-Man is, because when he first showed up in Let There Be Carnage, he's like, who's this guy? What the hell's going on? And again, that ended up being such a cock tease, because it seemed like, oh, he's going to be such a big player in this movie. He's in a mid-credit scene. Come on! He doesn't do shit other than, again, leave the little droplet of the symbiote for him to get the black suit. But I do hope Garfield comes back to fight him in the next Venom movie. Speaking of him, well, I can get to the other villains, but okay, let's get to the other villains first. Flint Marko, aka Sandman's in this, and they do still have the kind of redeemed one. When he first shows up, he's helping Peter fight Electro. He, like, protects him from Electro. That's actually pretty cool. And I like the fact that they don't want to, the way they want to stay and fight back because they don't want to die. Other than Doc Ock, who has pretty much accepted his fate by this point. I really like that. Lizard is in this. He doesn't do a ton in this. I like Rhys Ifans in the role. I thought he was very good, and he's pretty good here. Again, he doesn't really do much, but it was nice to see him again. He's still my favorite Spider-Man movie villain. I don't care what anybody says. It was nice to see him. But now let's get to the elephant in the room, or elephants in the room. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. I am a huge Amazing Spider-Man fan, so I'm not gonna lie, I fanboyed out a little bit when I saw the big white eyes appear in the portal Ned made. Like, I figured, I'm like, he says, I need to find Peter Parker. I'm like, okay, this is how they're finding them. And then I saw the big white eyes, I'm like, yep, there he is. And I kind of fanboyed out a bit, I'm not gonna lie. Even seeing Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I've always been under the impression he's not that great of an actor. I don't think I've really seen him in anything where I thought, you know what, that was a really good performance. I was just see him as, he's okay. I didn't really like him as Spider-Man in those films because he was way too wimpy even after getting the spider bite. Even when he was in the suit, I still wanted to kick his ass because he was a huge fucking dork. But again, that's more on the script than Maguire, but still. Even in stuff like The Great Gatsby or The First Boss Baby, he wasn't very good in those either. But I'll be honest, he was pretty good in this. He definitely stepped up his game in terms of his performance. He is actually, because like I said, he's pretty good here. And I'm not going to lie, people are wanting a Spider-Man 4 and Amazing Spider-Man 3 now more than ever. And honestly, I don't feel like Maguire needs another film because his story was wrapped up. His story's done. But honestly, seeing a fourth one, if they were to make it, I probably wouldn't be as opposed to it as I was. Amazing Spider-Man 3, they need to make that. They need to put him in Venom's universe. I'm serious, they need to do it. And some of my favorites, and I really like how the different versions of Spider-Man interact. Some of my favorite scenes in this were just the three of them talking. Because it was so funny watching these very, very different, but all the same. Because all their universes are different, the circumstances are different. And I like some of the references. They acknowledge his organic web shooter. I knew they would. And they're constantly freaked out. It's like, dude, does this just come out of you? Does it come out of anywhere else? I'm like, and it's pretty funny. They got some really good banter in there. It reminds me a lot of the first Avengers movie, but it's just watching these three very different versions of Spider-Man interact off of one another. And I like Maguire, Spider-Man acts more like Spider-Man, because my problem with him in the originals, he wasn't very quippy, he wasn't very intelligent. They didn't show his intelligence that much. They showed him as kind of an idiot. Here we see his intelligence on full. We saw Garfield's plenty in his films. That was one of the main focuses of it, was he was the he was like, I believe someone compared it to if Steve Jobs was a superhero. And yeah, that's kind of what he is. And they at least show that that they're all the same, but they're just from such different circumstances. And the big shot in the trailer where MJ's falling and Peter's trying to save her, everybody and their mother figured out that Andrew Garfield was going to save her. That was going to be his big redemption for what happened to Gwen. Like, it it wasn't a surprise. Everybody knew it. Even me, who was kind of putting off. I'm like, I don't know if they're really gonna be in it. I was kidding myself. I knew I was kidding myself. But I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be him. There's like no way around it. And yeah, sure enough, that's what they did. It wasn't bad, but it was really predictable. If they hadn't put that in the trailer, it wouldn't have been as obvious, or probably would have been the second it happened. But whatever. I knew they weren't gonna kill her off. And like I said, the action in this is pretty good. I like the acrobatic stuff, but I feel like the brutal hand-to-hand fights between Peter and the Goblin were much better. Even though this Peter has no connection to this Goblin, in the first, it's up close and personal with these fights. Something that the other two films didn't have. They were just a bunch of acrobatic flips, a bunch of CGI nonsense. Here, we get plenty of that. Like the Doc Ock fight on the bridge, I think is just okay. The choreography's not terrible, but again, it's just a dude flipping around, another dude with octopus arms trying to grab him. That's about it. Or throwing cars and shit at him. That's about it. And thankfully, something I forgot to mention, I like how his identity reveal is not played as a running joke. I was so afraid of that when Far From Home came out. And the first trailer kind of did away with that. They're like, no, we're taking this seriously. And they did, and I'm glad they did. And I'm glad his identity crisis went through the whole film before meeting an end at the end of the movie. But honestly, it doesn't feel cheap, because in order to protect himself and everybody else, and to protect the multiverse from collapsing, he needs him to cast the spell so nobody remembers he's Spider-Man. Or nobody remembers him in general, actually. I don't know why just forgetting he's Spider-Man would have been any different. That was the spell he was trying to cast in the first place. But no, he has to erase all memory of Peter Parker as a whole. I don't get that. But I like that there are actual consequences. There is with great power comes great responsibility line twice. Once out of Aunt May, and one out of both Holland and Maguire's Spider-Man. So, and Garfield kind of chimes in a little bit with it too. He doesn't actually say the line, but it's implied. Because he had a different variation of the line in the movie. So, I do like his responsibility and honest to God consequences. For Homecoming, no consequences whatsoever. Absolutely none. He ditches detention, he ditches the decathlon, he ditches his friends constantly, he ditches the dance, and virtually nothing. Not much. Not much is lost. In fact, he gets rewarded at the end. Far From Home, the only consequence is his identity being revealed, but that doesn't play until the end credits. Here, there are honest-to-God consequences for his... It is made clear, no matter what choice he makes, there will be consequences. And the Lizard made that clear to him. He says, no matter what action you take, there will be consequences. And that is probably the one purpose of the Lizard in this. He's trying to be... I want to say he's trying to appeal to the humanity in Peter, but that seems odd coming out of the Lizard. But it's true. Because that was the whole point of the Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man, is that it was the DNA that was making him less human. But his human side was still there. It was the Lizard DNA that was just kind of tearing it apart. So I like to see that. I really do. And the ending scene where he makes everybody forget he's Spider-Man, great consequence. I really enjoy that. And Peter is now completely alone. He's got this little shitty apartment. Kind of looks like the one from the Maguire movie a little bit. It's a little bigger, I think. But because honestly, other than like the shitty looking walls and door, doesn't look that bad of an for a 17-year-old. Doesn't look like that bad of an apartment. And he gets a new suit at the end. He makes a new suit that seems to take inspiration from both Garfield's and Maguire's suits. Like, it's extremely shiny, and like, holy crap, like the blue is like glinting from the light is like glinting off the blue. It is incredibly shiny, and it looks like the logo was like a combination of Maguire's and Garfield's with a bit of Holland's in there too. And I really like that. I like he went back to the classic red and blue. I'm so glad he brought that back. Because I got really sick of that red and black suit. I'm sorry, it looks terrible. I hate that upgraded suit. I was sick of seeing it. It looked terrible. I'm glad they got rid of it. And I'm glad they finally broke the Iron Spider suit. I was sick of seeing that too. Like, it was cool when I first saw it, but the more I thought about it, that suit looks like shit. And I'm glad it's gone. So, yeah, is there much else to talk about? There is technically a second end credit scene, but it was kind of a letdown because it was literally just the Multiverse of Madness trailer, and then at the end saying Doctor Strange will return. That was a huge bust. that was that angered me a bit. I was waiting for it, I'm like, you're kidding me. This is just a Multiverse of Madness trailer. Screw off. But yeah, this is, for lack of a better term, amazing. You could use any of this. Amazing, spectacular, you can do whatever you want. It is brought down a bit by some glaring plot holes and, or at least a glaring plot hole, and a few little details that don't entirely make sense, but honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it don't really matter. Far From Home had plenty of inconsistencies and plot holes, but because there were a ton of them, it made it more obvious. Here, they toned down the cringy jokes. There are a few that didn't land, obviously, but if you're writing a bunch of jokes for a movie that's supposed to be funny a lot, you're not going to land every single one. But quite a few of them did actually land. So, there's nothing else to talk about. That's Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm gonna give it an A. Maybe A minus. Yeah, I'll stick with an A. Purely because I thought this was going to be pure fan service and they managed to avoid it. It makes that one plot hole a little less annoying. So, and hell, maybe they'll fix it. Maybe they'll fix it at some point, but I don't know. Right now, it's just... But it's just the one, and in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it means much, and I think I can let it go. So, yeah, that's all I got for Spider-Man No Way Home, and I still have more movies to catch up on. But I am planning to see West Side Story in a couple days, so... Yeah, I was planning to see that a few weeks ago, but that didn't pan out, so I'm seeing it soon. Got a few other movies. I'm no longer watching Don't Look Up, because that looks like it's just a bunch of liberal propaganda, so fuck that. And, yeah, that's all I got. So, yeah, go see Spider-Man No Way Home. And if you haven't already, it's already made $1 billion at the box office.